Welcome to part 2 of From Beavers to Burgers. In this episode, we're going to take a look at boning out the beaver meat. So let's start with the gloves and the tools that we're going to need to do the job properly. As far as gloves go, I use these 5mm nitrile disposable gloves. You can get them at Harbor Freight. Medium duty gloves are fine. They seem to last long enough. I'll use one pair while I'm doing the skinning and then switch, throw those away. Use another pair when I start touching the meat. That way I always have clean gloves on. As far as knives, I use a variety of knives. I use rough knives. A rough knife is just a cheap knife that I can put in a rough sharpener, and I use it to cut through the mud, cut the feet off, what have you. It's just a rough knife. When it comes to the actual skinning process, I like my Knives of Alaska Cub Bear. It's a great little knife. I have a Kershaw skinner, which I really enjoy using, and then a small Rapala fillet knife for getting the back straps out and reaching in for some more of the delicate cuts. So those are the knives that I use. I'm not real picky. I'll use a buck 110. I'll use whatever I have handy. You don't need special knives. It's just they do make life a little bit easier, but you don't have to spend a fortune on them. So it's not that big of a deal as far as I'm concerned. Okay, now that I've got the beaver skinned, what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back straps out. That meat is tender enough to just pan fry and eat directly, so I want to get that out first. And you can see I've got him tied up around the tail. That way, even though he's on a downhill slope, I can pull, I can get some tension, and I don't have to worry about him coming off the board and falling in the dirt. Not that that's ever happened before, but it's kind of frustrating to have your food fall into the dirt. So that's something that I try and avoid. I'm just going to take an old fillet knife and come right down the center of the spine. I'm going to separate that front shoulder just a little bit so that I can get down in here and get that back strap. You can see this little fillet knife really gets in there and comes in handy. Now as you start getting into the tail area, you get a lot of tendons and it really tends to get stringy. So it's up to you as to how far down you want to go. Usually about the base of the tail is where I'm going to call it good. And I just take my time and get as much meat as I can. That's the purpose. That's why I'm doing it. And when you get down in here, you're actually starting to get into the top of the hind quarter. So that's just a judgment call as to how far down you want to go with that. We'll trim that up a little more once we get it chilled down. But there's your back strap. That's ready to hammer into medallions and eat. I like to fold it meat side to meat side, and then into the meat bag it goes. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. There is back strap number 2, right there. Fold it meat side to meat side, and into the bag it goes. Now I'm going to flip the animal over. We'll take the front quarters, the hind quarters off. When you get up around the head, there's a lot of this vascular tissue, and it is quite bloody. Just have to cut all of that away. I'm I'm going to try and get this as exposed as I can for you. Now, unlike a deer whose shoulder is free floating, I can't just cut right through here and pull this front quarter off. There's a bone that comes right through here and connects right in the center of the chest. So I've got to split that before I can get this entire front quarter off. I'm going to try and show you that. It's easier said than shown, especially from the angle you're looking at it at. I don't know if you can see right through there, but that is connected. That's what I have to sever to get the front shoulders off. Now, a trick I'm going to show you is to go back to the loppers. There we go. And hopefully you can see that covered that. Hopefully you can see that on camera, separating that right there. Once that's done, you can pull that entire front shoulder off, and we'll trim all of that up later. There's our second front shoulder. Now we're going to go and focus on the hind end back here. Now when you're dealing with a beaver, this is a very dangerous area. Not only do you have the reproductive organs, not only do you have the bladder, but you have the sac glands and the castor glands, sac oil glands and the castor glands. Now this is where what I'm going to show you is a little bit different than most people. Most people that live up north in a cold climate, by the time they're harvesting their beaver, this is all firm, and it's very easy for them to pull these glands out and to trim it away. As you can see, I'm in short sleeves. It's 70 degrees out today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this entire area and I'm going to remove the entire area, set it aside. I'll chill it in a refrigerator in a bag, and once I get the tissues chilled, then I can go in and separate all the glands. But it's just too warm down here right now for me to do the traditional peeling apart of the glands, because the guys up north, they can just come in here and they can just cut this stuff out, because everything has solidified up. But you can see there's nothing solidifying there. So I'm just going to take this entire area and remove it. Okay, what I've done is I flipped the animal around so that this is on the downhill side, because I want to pull all of this stuff down this way. So I've got him pinned up that way. Remember, this is where all the urine, sac oil, and the castor is, and we want to keep from contaminating the meat. So we're going to work very carefully down here. And that's why we want this on the downhill side instead of up here, so that if I puncture something, if it were up here, it would run all the way down and contaminate the meat, and I don't want that. The main thing is to take your time and just go, be careful. You get in a hurry, you can ruin it all. I'm famous for that. Now I've got everything out, the castor glands, the oil sacs, everything. And I'm going to chill that down so that I can work on it a little bit better. Okay, now the next thing that I need to do is I'm going to split the pelvis, which is right here. Once again, I'm going to take my loppers and I'm simply going to insert it in and split that pelvis. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove each hind quarter, and finally I'll get into the intestinal cavity. I'll split that up and get the liver and the heart out. So I'm going to take this. There. All I want to do is just crack that just enough to where I can get in it and work in there. There we go. Now, what I want to do is I want to remove this hind quarter right here. The key is to find the ball and socket joint. So what I'm going to do, see, I'm pushing the intestinal wall up. And it's going to start to bleed. I'll make sure I don't cut any of that. And I'm going to try and stay out of the way of the camera here. Now what I hope you can see is right there, where the tip of that knife is, that's the ball and socket joint. You can see how I'm cutting that. There's a tendon right in the middle that holds it all together. Once you get that, you've got it, you're home free. At that point, you can take the entire hindquarter. There we go. There's the ball and the socket. That's the key. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. There is the liver. And that is what I want. Very clean, very healthy liver. Okay, now the next thing that I want is the heart. So I'm going to open the chest cavity up, and it is right here. It'll be right there. It's a fairly small organ considering the size of the animal. Right there. Now I'm going to take the tail, and an easy way to do that is with your loppers. Just take that. There's the tail. There we go, both pieces of cheek meat. That'll go into the grinder. I'm just going to pull all of that out. Now the flank steak, which is this right here, by the time you trimmed all of this off, there really wouldn't be much there. This makes great dog food. Your dogs will love you for this, trust me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ribs, because I do like beaver ribs. They are good. There's one slab. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Pretty much it. You can use the carcass. You can give it to your dogs. They love anything like this. Just boil it for them. You can use this to make stock. You can trim it up. Whatever you want to do. But that is how I butcher a beaver. Now this is beaver liver. That is a very healthy liver. There's no spots, there's no discoloration, nothing. That's one of the first things that you want to check when you go to butcher an animal, is check the liver. And what you're looking for is a nice, rich liver color like this. If you see anything with any spots or any discolorations or anything that doesn't look right, that's a good indicator that that animal may be sick or diseased or what have you. But organ meat is exceptionally healthy. It's very, very good for you. And personally, I like beaver liver and onions. So this is going to go into the freezer along with the heart. And you can see that's the heart. That's just good organ meat as well. Nothing wrong with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to trim off the membrane, the silver skin, and everything else. This is just like you would a deer. I mean, it's no different, nothing special. It's just smaller, that's all. If you've got a dog, save all the scraps. It's very good meat for your dogs, and they love it. My old Aussie, she would sit there as long as I was going to trim and toss scraps to her. She would sit there and eat it. Now at this point, this hindquarter right here is basically ready to go. If you're going to put it in a crock pot, cook it whole, cook it as a roast, what have you, this is as far as you need to go with it, really. But since I'm going to do a burger, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to debone it and have the meat chunks. It'll be everything taken off the bone, all put in a pile. I go ahead and I like to trim the chunks to size so that they'll fit in my grinder. I've got a fairly small grinder, and so I found that if I go ahead and do the work up front, just cut everything into small chunks, it makes the grinding process easier.
Well, I'll keep boning this meat out, and next time when we get together, we'll mix it with our bacon ends and put it in the grinder, and we'll turn all of this into some of the best burger you've ever had. I hope this was useful, and thanks for watching.